Thank you. My name is Stian Nilsen, and this is Edvard Lysne. I'm going to start off right away. I'm guessing some of the guys in the audience have heard about the bookstore chain Borders. It used to be one of the biggest bookstore chains in the world. And in fact, this picture is taken from Oxford Street in London, where they used to have this dream of a bookstore, 5 stories tall, massive bookstore where you could lose yourself to books for hours and hours. Now it's actually gone, completely gone. What happened? This guy came along with his newly started company, Amazon.com, in 1995, and his ambition to become the biggest bookstore in the world. And just to make a short or a complicated story short, the only place you will find Borders today is on Wikipedia, whereas Amazon.com is not only the biggest bookstore in the world, they are also biggest on ebooks, they're biggest on audiobooks, and in fact, they have 25 operations behind the brand Amazon.com. And you have similar stories to this across other industries as well. HMV, for example, used to be one of the biggest high street music retailers. They had a big, massive store on Oxford Street as well as Borders. They closed down in January this year due to services like iTunes and Spotify. And in fact, now iTunes are having trouble due to services like Spotify, so that's quite interesting as well. Another example is Blockbusters. It used to be a massive retail chain. They had 60,000 employees, more than 9,000 stores across the world. Now they're almost completely gone. I think they have like 200-300 stores left in the US. And it's all gone because of companies like this, Netflix, streaming services, video on demand. I think all these stories have some similarities, and the similarities are that the new players in the market, they understand the rules of digital playground much better than the old giants did. Because it's almost the same story in all these cases. A new startup comes along, changes the industry rules, and in those cases I mentioned, they've done so by using digital media or digital technologies. So for us as a state operator and a national company, it's interesting to ask yourself the question, how does these rules translate into the gambling and gaming industry? Now, unfortunately, I don't have time to go through them all, but I've picked some of the ones I think are the most important ones. So I'm going to give you 4 rules from the gaming and gambling industry. And Edvard is going to say something about how we try to adapt to these new rules and what we do in order to change and answer to the new rules. The first rule I've called gratification on demand. Fancy title. Anything, anywhere, anytime. And there's also other fancy phrases like the on-demand society, Generation C, or the AAA generation. Very fancy titles and nice words. But there's actually some substance behind all this. And I'll try to illustrate the point of all these words with a few examples. First of all, when I was a kid growing up in Norway, this is what TV looked like. We had one channel, Norwegian Broadcasting Company, and if I wanted to watch TV at 1835, I had to watch Sommertreff in Nevlunghavn about some artists who had redeveloped a prawn factory into a gallery. Very interesting stuff to watch for a 10-year-old in Norway in 1985. For my kids growing up now, this is what TV looks like. Everything on demand. Zapping on the TV is unknown to them. They browse. They browse through applications, they browse through YouTube, they find stuff they want to watch and they watch it immediately. If they don't like it, skip it and find something else. Same thing with music. I'm guessing most of you remember that music used to look like this. Cassette players, vinyl records. But for my kids growing up now, music look like this. Everything on demand, mobile phones, iPads, computers, download the stuff you want or stream it directly through your computer. Whole different story. And this does something to customers' expectations. And since we're in the gaming industry, you probably guessed where I'm going with this, because when I was old enough to gamble, this is what I had to choose from. Pick your numbers, wait until Saturday, drawing machines, bingo, traditional stuff. Whereas for kids old enough to gamble these days, these are the things they're faced with. Same as TV and music that I mentioned, everything immediately accessible, instantly, on demand, wherever you like, whatever you like. And I think this being a fact, we have to ask ourselves the question, what do we think will dominate the future development of games? Will it be this one or this one? Likewise with the distribution, where do we think that the biggest growth potential is? Is it good old retail, or is it handheld device? Any guesses? Second rule of the digital playground I've called data is the new oil. And this might seem a bit confusing, but I'll try to illustrate it using a couple of examples. First, let me go back to this guy. This is the CEO of Amazon.com. Why is he the greatest living CEO? Why do Harvard Business Review consider him to be the greatest living CEO? I think for one thing, he understood the true meaning of the word data before anyone else, and he actually applied it to his business in a clever way before anyone else. The word data, which means to give, or in other words, something that gives. Understanding, insight, opportunities, closeness to customers. And Amazon, by understanding this, have been able to make the most data-driven sales and marketing operation in the world, and also the most data-driven customer experience in the world. Just a quick example. This might be difficult to see from the back, so I highlighted a few things. This is me browsing on Amazon.com. And as you can see, today's recommendations for you, new for you, continue shopping, customers who bought these items, or items in your recent history also bought. This does something to my expectation, and it does something to my loyalty. And it's not only Amazon who do this now, because more and more companies are adapting this way of thinking. This is an example from Finland, with Veikkaus, the Finnish gaming operator, state operator in Finland. They claim to have increased both sales and customer satisfaction through the use of advanced data analysis and data-driven customer programs. Same thing with the private operator, Unibet, who's a big operator in the Nordic countries. They utilize advanced data and pattern analysis in order to optimize the conversion rate on the customer registration process. And they also use embedded analytics in order to optimize their website for customers in more than 150 countries. Because when you have customers in more than 150 countries, you need some optimized process to channel content. Last example, MGM Grand, traditional casino in Las Vegas. They use advanced analytics as well, based on data generated when you visit the hotel. they collect data, they use pattern analysis, and they give personalized recommendations for the guests. And they also predict what will this guest like to be offered based on his history while staying in us. So, data is the new oil. Third one, social media gaming. Social media has been kind of a big topic the last years, and I guess you all know about Facebook, so I won't dwell much on these numbers here. But I think it's interesting to look at the last number. 250 million people play Facebook games each month. That's a lot of people. In fact, that constitutes the total population of all these 12 European countries put together. I don't think any state operator can show for numbers like that. And it's massive. One of the biggest games on Facebook is Synga Poker. And it's estimated that around 35 million Facebook users play Synga Poker each month. And you probably heard that earlier this year, Synga said on their blog that they were looking forward to launching real money games on Facebook and mobile in the UK. And your colleagues from the UK can probably tell you that they have done so now. And what they've launched is the casino application and the poker application. And there are also other companies who want to go social, like these, for instance. I think 888 are already on Facebook now. Bevin Party operates the back office system for Synga on Facebook. And it's quite easy to understand why all these companies want to go social, because social is a very effective marketing machine. If you look at, for instance, I've been into the casino, Caesars Casino on Facebook, and I played the slot machine. This is for funny money, not real money. Played the slot machine, won, got a bonus game, and immediately this thing comes up, share. Same thing with blackjack. I won 3 times in a row and immediately got this opportunity to tell my friends now. Just one example of how social can actually be a very powerful marketing machine and very effective marketing machine as well. So some people actually say now that social media might become the new Vegas Strip or the online version of the Vegas Strip. I think that depends very much on you guys sitting here, and I think it depends on the customers, how they react. If they do like this, it might become the online world's Vegas Strip, but if they do like this, it probably won't. So that's the third rule. The fourth and last one I'm going to give you before Edvard steps in is conversions or moneytainment, as we call it. And I'm going to start with a question. What if you could play all these games for money? Wouldn't that be great? That's the trick question, of course, because you can. Just some quick examples. This is backgammon at Ladbrokes. High stakes, low stakes tournaments, peer-to-peer. This is Hangman on Ladbrokes, where you combine a quiz with the traditional Hangman game. This is a football quiz, or a quiz on Ladbrokes, where you have to use tactics and knowledge in order to answer questions and put the ball in the net. But the most interesting one is probably this one. Virgin Gaming, who have entered into an exclusive deal with Electronic Arts. And some of you might know Electronic Arts. They have some massive titles in their portfolio, like FIFA 14, available today. And another example of why this is interesting is that this guy's behind it all. If you don't recognize him, it's Richard Branson. And he doesn't have the habit of following the rules. He creates new rules. So I'm very interested to see if he can make this Virgin Gaming thing fly like his Virgin Planes. These are some of the titles available, and when you see this, you have to ask yourself as a state operator as well, if kids old enough to gamble can gamble on these kind of games, how do you think they will feel about this? That was some short examples of new digital rules. These are the ones I've talked about. I could have talked about several more, but if you're interested, you could ask me in the break instead.
Yes, and as Stian said, the interesting part is how do we deal with this as a state operator? Let me start with this word, legacy. It's obviously that we as state operators have a legacy. We have a big legacy. Basically, our legacy can be summarized as a lottery, maybe a sports operator, doing mass marketing based on retail, being basically a massive sales and marketing machine. But fortunately, this is also a legacy. You have a huge customer base, you have a strong market position, there's a lot of trust in us as state operators in the market and in the government. So we have a kind of double legacy. So to use the metaphors or the examples Stian did, basically half of us is Borders, half of us is Amazon. I don't mean that by saying that we might go bankrupt because money gaming is quite lucrative, so we don't go bankrupt. But how does our future will play out? Will we be challenged, or will we be a challenger? That was the word, challenges was the word in the title, because the challenges this development poses to us as a state operator. I don't like that word because it implies a quite pessimistic view, that we are threatened, that there's a storm coming in. We couldn't turn it, this is kind of the Borders approach to it. If you take the other approach, we say, okay, what kind of advantages does this give us? We have advantages. What kind of opportunities does this development give to us? We have a lot of assets that might give us a positive future. The point is we don't know. It depends basically on ourselves. So for that reason, the consequences we face as a state operator is what I'm trying to focus on. And so I try to focus on some of the consequences we see, and I try at the end to list some of the dilemmas we see, because we don't know how this plays out. We don't know how the world will look like in 5 or 10 years. The first consequence is based on how you answer this question. Is this business that we are operating in and you are regulating, is it just another business? Not only just another business, but a very interesting business commercially. Or is it a special sector with some major ethical and social implications? You might say it's both. But if you answer that question, the answer to that question is very, very much a foundation of how this future will play out. It used to be consensus around this, that there was a special sector around Europe, and it was a concern of the nation state. But today, the answer to this question depends on where we are in Europe, because the consensus is gone. And that's due to many reasons. It's financial crisis in some country, and when financial crisis comes, the government looks for income, then the financial aspects of this industry seems to be getting more interesting. It's different political liberal winds, it's pressure from private operators, different reasons in different countries, but the image is that the consensus is gone. And this has implications for us, because even though we have a stable regulation in Norway or in another country, what happens in your neighboring country and in the wider world has implications. Take our example. When you have a different legislative regime in Denmark, it offers the opportunity for our competitors that are not allowed to operate in Norway to gain hold and get the position, to get a big market position. And this is the real game changer that everyone is waiting for. It will have a huge impact if US changes the gaming regulations. It will have a massive impact over the whole industry. Stian talked about borders. The digitalization has changed the fate of the retail chain Borders. I couldn't resist the wordplay here, because that's because digitalization changes borders. One common factor among those who understand the digital playground is they have a total different attitude towards borders. They operate in several countries. And what happens then is the major players here are getting enormously big. They're getting enormously big, much bigger. They have figures that we can just dream about. Because they don't respect, or they don't have one national market. They don't operate in one jurisdiction. But not only geographical borders, they also change the borders of the market. Stian mentioned the word monetainment. Monetainment can sort of be defined as taking entertainment and putting on a twist of gambling to enhance the experience. But you also have the fancy word gamification, also a buzzword. But it's a very interesting word. Think about, reflect on how many times a day do you encounter the words play, game, or win in your everyday life now, at least in this country, and I imagine all around the Western world at least. It's everywhere. And gamification can sort of be defined as enhancing a product or a customer experience by adding gaming elements. These three examples, more or less randomly chosen, is Nike, Heineken, and Coca-Cola. And then suddenly, you start to see that from the side, new types of competitors enter the market. And then the borders of the market is getting more fuzzy. In the past, it's been quite easy to define money gaming. In the future, it won't be. This is a prediction. Probably most of you have heard this, but a prediction from us is that you will hear this sentence a lot more in the years to come from players that you don't even think that you would have to relate to. People that try to avoid being defined as money gaming because then they have to comply to a lot of rules. No, this is not money gaming. No, it's one of these. And I'm certain that you will hear a lot of creative responses to why this is not money gaming in the future. This has implications for us. And to put it a bit philosophically, the question is to be a big fish in a small pond or to be a small fish in a big pond. That's the question we have. And that's the situation we are in now. What I mean by that, it seems like quite abstract, but this is very, very real for us. Because when we are a big fish in a small pond, this is 4 Norwegian brands. You probably don't know them. The first one is our main competitor in the world we're coming from, horse betting company. The second is the biggest retail or kiosk and convenience store chain. Most of our retail chain, the biggest part of our retail chain has traditionally gone through that chain. NRK is the national broadcasting company where we have our TV draws, and VG is the main national newspaper, which has been an important place for our marketing. When we have relationships to all those, when we deal with these, and when we deal with these people, we are somebody. We are an important figure. We have relationships, we have a legacy. We are quite big in a small pond. When we are a small fish in a big pond, we have to relate to these guys. I don't think I have to explain these brands to you, who they are, but this is the guys we now have to relate to. And when we relate to them, we are who? What? From where? The North Pole? Where is that? We don't have a tradition, we don't have a history, and they don't see us as important at all. That's quite a challenge. And that's not just, those are the 4 that we have to. The 2 or 3 are above here is very important for us already. But okay. The regulatory landscape changes, the competitive landscape changes, well, we can handle that. Because the real changes is the real change, the real challenge for us, the real test for us, isn't that? It's probably obvious for all of you, but this is the real test. How to attract the modern customer. And please don't fall into the trap and think about this as the younger segments of tomorrow. This is the segments, this is the new behavior and new expectations of today. Just an example. This used to be the biggest newspaper in Norway. It was until a year or two ago. It still, it depends on how you count, it still is, but not on the web. This is the biggest newspaper in Norway, now. It's not this anymore. So it's not about tomorrow. It's not about younger segments, it will come. The point is that we need a major change of our business now. We need, and it's quite urgent, to acknowledge that we have to change from being a retail-based lottery operator, not forgetting that legacy, but turning into a more interactive, broader provider of gaming and gaming services, entertainment services. We have to acknowledge that. If we stay to the left, I'm sorry to say, we are borders of HMV. Not meaning that we will close down, but we will lose in the long term. And yet, I mean the word now. I mean to stress the urgency in this. I just picked out some key figures, fresh figures from our reality that we face now. Now we have 15% of our weekly sales go through this one, increasing rapidly. 3 years ago, we launched this on the platform, and now we have 15% of our turnover. 80% of our sports betting, which is after lotteries is the biggest part of our business, is on digital channels now. And we now have more weekly customers on mobile than we have on web already. It happens fast, and it happens now. So this kind of sense of urgency that is needed, at least in our company, we need to change. Okay, change what? We have to change what we offer. We have to change the way we approach our customers, how we think about marketing. We have to change radically our distribution structures. Because when we have 4,000 retail chains, in a couple of years, we can guess, 4 or 5 years, over 50% of our turnover is digital. Of course, it has implications for distribution structures. We have to change how we develop. We have to change who we cooperate with. We have to change our regulatory framework. Okay, change towards what? And here comes all the buzzwords, but this is really important, and this is the reality we are facing. We have to have a strong focus on digitalization. We have a buzzword in our house that says that everything that can be digitalized should be digitalized. We have to have a much, much stronger focus on customer dialogue, to think relationships, not just get the customer's transaction. Think long-term, loyalty, to have that focus. We have to think mobile first. We have to acknowledge that maybe even the web is already, the traditional PC-based web is yesterday. This is, we see the trends already. This is not only tomorrow, it's starting to be today for a lot of customers. We have to have a more effective real-time approach. That means we have to be out there. We have to understand the context of the customer, the situation. We have the tools and the data that Stian mentioned to be out there. We have to get better at it than we are today. And we have to get better at adapting to the customers. We have to be, we don't have any choice. It's easy to say, it's much harder to do. Okay, that was the consequences. In this context, it's 3 dilemmas. There's probably a lot of dilemmas in this development. There are 3 dilemmas I want to highlight in this context. The first is maintaining and leveraging a national profile in an increasingly internationalized industry. How to be a small fish and live prosperously as a small fish. Because what kind of legacy do we have in the Norwegian marketplace and the other state operators have in their respective jurisdictions that they can leverage and use to gain ground? Because the competitors that are coming in are international. The threats are not coming from inside. They're coming from everywhere else, and maybe not even from the names and the brands that we expect today. That means that we have to look closely at how to promote the way our surplus goes to beneficiaries. We have to work closely with you. We have to work closely with our closest partners. We have to utilize the legacy of being local, being in our communities, stuff like that. And we've talked a lot about data and real time. For US regulators, one of the things we see is that when you get those opportunities, when you get those tools and those data, they are very, very powerful tools commercially. And then we have to balance those with our responsible gaming legacy and use them with the necessary cautiousness. Because these are very, very powerful commercial tools. You can predict behavior, you can get to sell anything. Interestingly enough, in most industries, your best customer is a legacy. You treat them very, very specially. In this industry, our best customer is potentially a problem, because they potentially have a problem. The third one is balancing short-term revenue, especially for us who has dedicated beneficiary, versus long-term renewal strategies. Do we prioritize next year's budget, or do we prioritize building customer loyalty for 3, 5, and 10 years ahead? Do we prioritize today's customers versus prioritizing tomorrow's customers? These are 3 dilemmas. And to round things up, when we thought about how to this audience, we thought, okay, but this also affects you. Because there's some key points here that also affects you as regulators. And my prediction is that your future can be summarized in the keywords borders and battles. You will have a lot of struggle and you pay a lot of attention to how, not just geographical borders, but how to define the market. Who are you authorized to regulate, and how, and why? And you have to be prepared to deal with very, very powerful commercial interests and legal battles, and a lot of lawyers that will have to be tough and sharp in the future. Because there is a common ground between us and you. We're both based on the premise of that this is a special sector that needs special attention. We both have a kind of a regulatory mandate, us as operators, you as regulators. We're both authorized by the state, and we both have the nation state as our playground, which in itself is a challenge in a digital world which is highly internationalized. Yes, that was basically the point I was making. Yes. Thank you.